Hello, I'm Sean. Today we're going to discuss one of the many mystifying wonders of the modern world, litter. Since Einstein, it has been discovered that there are in fact three things that are permanent: the universe, human stupidity, and litter. Described as trash left in an open or public place, this curious species makes its home in places like streets, alleys, oceans, and even the lungs of the unwilling. But as a subject so far from rogue robots and artificial intelligence, how could something that exists through humans get so far out of our control? Let's take an in depth look at litter, its origins, and what we can do to reclaim our title as the most invasive species from a bunch of inanimate, malleable, invertebrate objects. A title that we have worked so hard to claim. Let's start from the beginning. Plastics were first invented in the 19th century in order to provide a substitute for organic materials like ivory, which were in decline due to poaching. Plastics really came into their own in the 1900s, however, and long lasting plastics were being produced not to replace organic materials, but as its own novel multi purpose material. Production of long lasting, fully synthetic plastics increased exponentially after World War II, and in the 1950s, high density polyethylene was invented and was used in soap and milk containers as well as piping. Like this pipe. Plastics replaced everyday materials and were found in every consumer product. It was seen as a super material that would promote material wealth and, ironically, environmental conservation. Plastics were viewed as something that would save baby elephants and sea turtles, not harm them, since now your earrings, hair combs, and Bibleman figurines didn't involve a mammal's head. In order to combat littering issues, the plastic bag was invented in 1965. It would be used to easily collect and dispose of trash while saving trees from being chopped down to make paper bags. Counterintuitively, plastic bags would lead to a century of littering, carelessness, and environmental harm. How so? Well, plastics were often manufactured with harmful chemicals like bisphenol A, or BPA for short. BPA can leach into the environment and directly affects not just the environment, but people as well. Mayo Clinic has observed that exposure to BPA could lead to cardiovascular disease, cognitive conditions, and negative consequences to one's body systems. These plastics found their way into cities, grasslands, and oceans. Plastics were hailed as a super material, a savior to the environment, and people's attitudes towards the handling of plastic products, as well as the doctrine of how plastics were to be used, became careless. And half a century later, the consequences of plastics began to rear their ugly heads. According to Keep America Beautiful, a nonprofit organization, the US government spends $11.5 billion annually on litter cleanup. Despite this, there is still litter on the street. Every corner, every street, every block you may turn, there is always trash. That is a fact that everyone can agree with. No matter how clean your community may be, there will always be litter lurking around the corner. If plastic bags have been found in the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, I can guarantee you that there will be an empty bottle lying around next to your local supermarket. But how could so much money spent equate to essentially no progress? Well, it's due to the constant littering. Half of all Americans admit to littering, and considering the ever increasing amount of litter on the highways, it's no wonder why litter still prevails over government spending. Researchers of Keep America Beautiful have estimated that there are around 50 billion pieces of litter along US roadways and waterways. 50 billion! That's nearly half of all humans who have ever existed on this earth, over a time period of 2 to 6 million years. But who cares if litter is lying on the street? It'll be picked up one day, and until then, it'll stay there forever, right? Well, as it turns out, litter doesn't like the city life much, and as long as there's enough time, litter always ends up in the ocean. Litter often passes through storm drains and gutters and finds its way into rivers, canals, and eventually oceans, all while harming the environment and its inhabitants along the way. Fortunately, there are many organizations like 4Ocean and the Ocean Conservancy who dedicate themselves to pulling trash out of the ocean. 4Ocean has hauled around 28 million pounds of trash from the ocean, and the Ocean Conservancy has hauled an astonishing 350 million pounds of trash since their inception. With these reassuring numbers, some may argue that their littering would make no difference in the grand scheme of things, since these organizations haul so much trash from the ocean anyway. However, I believe that the numbers paint a different picture. Half of all Americans admit to littering. If half of all Americans litter 1 pound of trash a year for 2 years, they would already overcome the combined total of trash scooped from both of the organizations combined. To add even further insult to injury, National Geographic states that there is an estimated 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic in the oceans. Simply put, their admirable efforts will be futile if trash keeps on flowing into the oceans in the first place. If people continue to litter, it wouldn't matter how many pounds of trash is hauled from the oceans. And besides, these organizations, they're probably trying to remove trash from the ocean and subtract from the total amount, not, equal it out. Litter poisons the environment. Litter releases harmful chemicals into the water, into the air, and into the soil, as well as facilitating disease. These consequences don't only apply to us, but also to the animals. Fresh water becomes contaminated, seawater becomes acidic and inhabitable, and the air becomes too toxic to breathe healthily. And the animals die. So many of them die. Fish, birds, sea turtles, and other animals get tangled in plastic. With no other option, they do nothing but struggle and starve to death. It is estimated that 1 million animals die each year due to trash, and plastic litter is the main culprit. That's double the population of Long Beach gone every year. According to National Geographic, 90% of all seabirds have been found with plastic trash in their systems, and the Ocean Blue Project estimates that over 1 million seabirds die annually due to plastic consumption. The birds mistake plastic for food, eat them, and it fills up their stomachs. Since their stomachs are filled, birds feel full and can't eat as much despite not receiving proper nutrition. As a result, they die a long, agonizing, and helpless death due to starvation.
Uh, Part next, the Great Patch in the Ocean. Yeah.
The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is one of the six massive bodies of trash in the oceans. Garbage patches form when vortexes in the ocean collect floating waste, and the vortexes don't allow the trash to leave, so they form great bodies of trash soup in the ocean. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is actually off the coast of California, and if we don't change, it won't be long until the Bay Area inhabitants see the consequences of their carelessness for themselves. 80% of the trash in the patch comes from land, and due to prolonged exposure to the sun and water, the plastics break down into tiny pieces called microplastics. These are eaten by marine life, and if they don't die before being fished, we could be ingesting the microplastics ourselves. The garbage wrecks the environment, its food chain, its animals, and will soon affect us. Most importantly, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is around 1.6 million square kilometers, or around 1 million square miles large. This means that the size of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is almost 3 times as large as France. Again, almost 3 times as large as France. We have bodies of trash floating around in the oceans bigger than whole countries. Even in the modern age of forgetting about our problems, this fact is sobering. But innocently tossing a drink cup or a bag couldn't possibly lead up to hundreds of billions of pounds of trash in the ocean, right? Well, it's certainly not wrong to think that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch may seem like a far cry from littering on the street, but remember, littering is a lot like accumulating laundry. 1 or 2 shirts may not seem like much, but be careless and the laundry pile could topple Everest. Furthermore, remember how difficult it is negotiating a huge pile of laundry? Wouldn't it be easier to prevent the pile from accumulating instead? Likewise, wouldn't it have been easier to remedy the garbage patch if there weren't a constant flow of garbage coming from the land? Well, of course it would be, but unfortunately, it's too late to savor the nicer what if moments. So, what can us lonely, phone staring, permanent crick in the neck cave dwellers do about such a monumental problem? Well, the most obvious contribution we can make is to think twice before littering and to stop littering at all. There are a ridiculous number of waste bins around the world, and the street isn't a worthy place for trash. Remember, neither is the ocean. And besides, a coffee at Starbucks is like what, $4? Are you seriously going to spend that much money on something that you just toss anywhere? Show some respect for your overpriced bean water receptacles and safely dispose of them. We can also be responsible for the litter of others. You may not want to take responsibility for the carelessness of others, but if you want to pull the responsibility card, remember that this is our world, and our world is our responsibility. If you're not going to pick up someone else's trash for their sake, at least do it for the sake of our earth. We can also be more mindful of the products we consume. Use a paper cup for your daily coffee intake instead of the plastic ones. Use paper or metal straws instead of plastic ones, despite how supremely revolting paper straws may be. Do it for the turtles. Lastly, we can peer pressure our peers to do the right thing and to follow the methods provided to prevent littering. Instead of peer pressuring your friends to invest in pyramid schemes and whatever this awful generation indulges in, encourage them to better the world that we all collectively live in. A happier world results in happier people. Is a litterless world not easy on the eyes? Littering won't solve all of our problems, nor will it single-handedly remove all the trash in the world. In order to do that, we would need to find equally long-lasting, biodegradable, and environmentally friendly materials to replace the long relied upon plastics. We would need to find a way to dispose of the trillions of trash on Earth. We would need to shift our world focus on environmental cleanup, and we would all need to collectively care some more. Unfortunately, fairy dust and world peace aren't plausible goals, nor are they even the slightest bit possible in this modern world. We can't really rely upon make believe solutions to solve our real problems, and we can't aim towards a long term goal when we may not even have enough time to live through it. However, ending littering is a big step in preserving the only world we have, and making sure it doesn't turn into the awful post apocalyptic landscapes of Mad Max or Ready Player One. Choosing not to toss a bottle may not seem like much, but if everyone chose not to do it, major progress could be made. An inch could lead a mile. More proper disposal of trash means less trash in the environment, which means that litter cleanup organizations can make real progress in chipping away at the thousands upon thousands of tons of trash. We can change, and we must change. We must be conscious of our environment. We must care about the world we live in. We must address our problems at its face. We must collectively make a difference. We are fighting an uphill battle, and we must attack the problem at its head if we are to prevail. We must and we can. Honestly, I don't have much faith in my generation, nor do I have much faith in this world. I'm sure you guys see the same way, but I have faith in you guys that you guys will go out there and make a difference to change the world for the better, to go out there and pick up litter and be conscious of your decisions, to make this world a better place, and to make a difference, and to make a change. We must change, and well, we can, and we should, and we will. And yeah, I guess that's it. Bye bye. Hope I get an A.